Hello and welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and SharePoint Power Hour is a weekly show we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, where we talk about SharePoint and Office 365 solutions that don't involve hardcore programming or server admin, just a ton of out-of-the-box functionalities and concepts that we demo and discuss. Today's demo is going to be part of a series that I started a while back where, since InfoPath's going away now in the year 2026, and it's also a pretty antiquated technology, people are looking around for other forms products to use with SharePoint and SharePoint Online with Office 365. So we have a couple of rackers here in the chat window that you may have never seen before, and Russell and Kelly, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but they've used this product called Dynamic Forms for SharePoint on a SharePoint list, and they would like to demonstrate it and show how it works and show how they set it up. It doesn't require any server installation. They just did it within a site, and they had it on a site in our farm. And we were quickly able to go build that same exact list and interface in my Office 365 tenant to be able to do this demo. And it's a pretty fast little setup just to take that whole thing and make a sort of a copy of it. So I will go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. So real quick, we have, if you've never been to Power Hour, we have a little chat window that's it's a Q&A. So if you are watching us on YouTube, you'll have a little yellow icon that takes you over to the Google Hangout, and the Q&A is actually in the Google Hangout. There's a little icon of like a little waffle icon of some squares towards the top right, which lets you flip between the Showcase app where we share links with you and the Q&A app where you can ask us questions as we go. So feel free to ask us questions as we go. That's why we do it live. And let's see, we'll go ahead and we'll let my team introduce themselves first, and then Kelly and Russell. So Kevin, then Ryan, then Stephen, and then Kelly, then Russell, and then you guys can go ahead and do your demo.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Hughes. I'm SharePoint architect here at Rackspace and based out of Kansas City. My role here is to work with our customers to figure out what their needs are within SharePoint and figure out how to make that happen, then work with the rest of our team to implement it.
My name is Stephen Wilson. I am a SharePoint engineer here at Rackspace. I do a lot of our configurations and migrations and things like that, so I don't touch the user space as much as some of our consultants, but I help out people when they first get SharePoint and they're kind of wondering what their next steps are, how to create a list, how to create a library, how to upload things, what they shouldn't do, and some of the basic terminology like what's a site collection, all of that kind of stuff.
I think Ryan disappeared. Oh, well, let's see. I'll let you go, Kelly and Russell.
He disappeared because he couldn't hear anything.
All right, I'm Kelly Megan. Been at Rackspace for about 12 years now. I work in product operations for our Rackspace private cloud, and this is a tool that we've been using for the past week and a half or so that we're going to demo for you guys today.
I'm Russell Clark. I'm a product manager in Rackspace Private Cloud, and Kelly and I are both SharePoint users, and we have been working with SharePoint for a little while now, building tools for some of our teams here to help improve some of the operational work they have to do. Yep.
So you guys aren't necessarily SharePoint as your title or anything, but you do a ton of SharePoint just in your regular job, just in the business, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Tonya popped in late, so Tonya, I'll let you introduce yourself real quick, and then Russell, I'll let you guys take over.
Hi, I'm Tonya Kaiser, and I run our internal SharePoint environments at Rackspace. So I get to deal with common issues that we all talk about on Power Hour.
All right. Russell, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Let me start sharing my screen. I think we're showing the right thing. So this is the website for the tool that we're going to talk about today, Dynamic Forms for SharePoint. I think, Laura, you said you were going to post that link.
Yes, I did. I posted it in the little showcase app, and also you might want to bump up the zoom level on your IE. Just I don't know if
I'll do that now.
Yeah, just because the way it renders out, and later in the recording, it's easier for people to see. Maybe 125, 150. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the his website's rendering strange with that zoom. Let me go back out a little bit. Okay, that's better. So this is his website. This is where you can download and indeed purchase the product. The download is pretty straightforward. His user manual is very easy to follow. Alexander is the owner of this website, and he is pretty active on this website. We found that he is very active when it comes to responding to questions on his pages, and pretty straightforward to use. So I'm going to take you right on into the installation of this. It's fairly straightforward. The only thing I've set up so far is a document library called SPJS. I'll say that the naming of these libraries and folders is set to be expecting these names. I'm pretty sure with a tool you can modify them, but for ease of use, it's just simple if you keep it named the way he recommends in his installation manual. So getting this content in there is fairly straightforward. I actually downloaded the tool from his website already in this folder called DFFS. It's a whole bunch of files in here. The recommendation from him is to actually take that entire folder and place that directly into this library. So I have opened the library in my Windows Explorer so that I can just do that, copy and paste.
Real quick, another option, what I did with mine is just another way to do the exact same thing, is you can hit the sync button in Office, in your SharePoint or Office 365 library, and then when you sync that whole library down to your hard drive, then you can take those files you extracted from the zip and just move them over that way, and then they'll just sync up to SharePoint. So it's just another way to do the exact same thing.
Now, for some reason, I'm getting a security error. Let me add this site. Of course, only in a live demo.
Well, it's good to know, though, because those are things that people are going to come across when you're trying to do that. Open things in Internet Explorer, right?
Wow. It's telling me it's already in there.
Hey, do you want me to just drop them in there from my end while you're doing that, and you can just talk about other stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll just do that real quick.
That's definitely not working for me.
Yep, I'm sure we all know these are the joys of live demos. So you can plan as much as you want, but there's always going to be something.
Indeed. Do you have the files, Laura?
Yes, I do. I'm putting them in there right now. So you can just keep talking about what your business,
Yeah. So the reason we started looking at tools like this is, as Laura was mentioning, our experience of using InfoPath. What we have is the pretty large forms that we're trying to work with, and the default views that SharePoint creates for large lists, and filling those in is not very good. So we had done quite a bit of work with InfoPath, and again, InfoPath can be a little bit of a quirky tool. So we were just on the lookout for something else that we could
All right,
customize forms
you
with.
should be able to refresh and see them in there.
Let's have a look.
The folders are still going, it looks like. So the folder,
Okay.
yeah. So it'll just take a few more seconds. But you guys are not necessarily technical. You're not necessarily programmers, but you needed to be able to have some custom forms and start gradually moving away from InfoPath and have things that are going to be more compatible with modern browsers, et cetera, et cetera. So this tool was the perfect solution, right?
Yeah, and as the moment we get into this tool, I think you'll see exactly how easy it is to use.
Looks like it's finished.
Very straightforward. Okay, so before we go on, Laura, I'm going to ask you to make one more change.
Okay.
What you've done here is actually the first thing we did as well, which was drag the contents of the DFFS folder into here. All of this actually needs to be in.
Oh, okay, I was just about to ask you that because I thought I might have done that wrong.
Yeah. Again, I'm pretty sure you can modify where it's stored. We've just found it simpler to store it in the default location.
Okay. Yeah, it's syncing now. So.
Okay.
Interesting. So when you did it wrong, where was that obvious? Was the whole thing broken or?
Yeah, we couldn't get access to the tool. It wasn't loading as expected.
Okay.
So what happens is it doesn't allow you to actually link to the backend tool. It actually shows the column on the list as opposed to showing the link to the backend tool.
Oh, okay. So that's a great tip. All right, so the DFFS folder is in there, and it looks like it finished. I'm seeing all little green check boxes in my OneDrive for Business. So
okay, yep, it looks like.
I just threw it in there in addition to all the other ones.
Okay, so then the thing that we're going to do is create a web part page, and actually this can be placed anywhere for ease of use. I'm going to put it in this folder. Am I seeing this right? DFFS. Okay, DFFS has just got a copy of everything now. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me create.
Now, in the documents library there that you see on the left, I actually added the web part page content type so that you can actually go to documents, and web part page will be one of the options there since it wasn't there in that other library.
Okay. So let me create new web part page.
Another little random tip by Laura.
Indeed. And I'm going to need the URL to the setup page. So in the DFFS folder, the setup page, that's what I'm going to copy. And if I go back to my documents, and I'm going to add a web part to this page. And it is the content editor web part. And then paste that file name as the URL for the content editor. And we are almost finished here. Now there's two ways in which you can use this tool. The first is you can actually add the DFFS loader to an individual list, which you would select this item and type in the name of your list. If you plan on using it multiple times, the easier way to do it is just to add it as a site column. And so I'll click that button, and this is where that folder location counts. So that's why I say I'm pretty sure you'll be able to change this but it says it's in a document library named SPJS, and the folder is DFFS. So that's the default location, and we've just kept that. The tool allows you a 14-day fully functional trial, at which point, if you want to get a license, you will need to purchase a license and then email this code over, and you'll get a return code that you'll fill in this box. You just repeat this again and fill in the license code, and it activates the license. And so that's it. Save changes. So now what that's done is it's created a site column that's available for me to add to a list. Here's a list that I prepared earlier. And let me add the site column.
So why don't we show what the list looked like before, so we can kind of get a picture of how it basically tabs the list into a better format.
I'll do that. And I forgot to
also, what is the business thing that you guys are trying to do with your list?
So this business for us is tracking our customer deployments and following through on what stage they are at. We deploy private clouds for Rackspace customers, and we take those deployments through quite a large number of steps and stages, and we have a team of people that are responsible for doing that, and this tool really just helps them keep everybody informed as to what is the current status of those deployments. But let's go ahead and take a look at what the list would look like without us doing any of this work. So it's a pretty long list with a whole bunch of information that we're capturing about the environment that we are building for the customer. And so trying to fill all this information out, some of it's not always required. It depends on what type of a deployment. I might want to show and hide certain things. And so we found that trying to use a list like this was a pretty poor experience for our user base. So let me go ahead now and add the site column.
Yeah, we actually started down the path of adding a bunch of JavaScript to hide columns and stuff like that, and just found that with a 100+ column list, it just got pretty hard to manage. So we decided to look for a better tool.
Great idea. Yeah, this is a very common requirement that people have, is just to have a form you fill out that you only ask certain things based on certain other values and based on a status, or certain people see certain things, etc.
Exactly. So you'll see that the site column category has been added called SPJS blog, and there's the DFFS loader. I'll just add that to the view. One of the things that I'm going to do right away is actually, as this front-end JavaScript loads on your list, there is a icon that shows the progress of the loading, and you can customize this. So I figured we would do that. We have a little spinny Rackspace logo that we're going to replace, and it's a fairly simple line of code.
Now, we haven't tested this out, but you should be able to edit the description of the actual site column, or you can do it at the list. So if you want a different logo for the list, for a specific list than you do for the entire site collection, you can change the logo for each individual list.
So basically here it is. I just specify my image location, and that location is pretty long because of the location of my image.
Did you write that code yourself, or is that something you got somewhere?
We got it off his website.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. So it's just pointing to the location of the image and the background color. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and you'll see that. Now it's now ready for us to actually begin customizing the way the forms work. And the way this tool works is you can customize all three of the forms. So that's the new item form, the edit item form, and the display item form. It will allow you to do each one differently, or you can do them all the same. So the first thing I do is actually just go to that form, the new list form, scroll right to the bottom, and this is where we see the link to get into his tool. So here it is. Enter DFFS Setup.
Now, if there's a problem with the installation here, you would see this as a normal column. So it would be a normal input field as opposed to being a link at the bottom of the field, at the bottom of the form.
Good
That's
to know.
right. It would
We
look
also
like a
have-
text field.
Somebody named Craig says, I'm a huge fan of SPJS and DFFS. Alexander is awesome. And then Anne has a question. Probably you guys are going to get to this. Can you change the size of the page? So we'll see when you demo the form itself.
Yeah, you can customize this thing like crazy. So instead of starting from the very beginning, we already built this form out. So one of the things that is very simple is copying your settings from one form to another. Obviously, in this case, the form was identical, so that doesn't bring any of those complications. But I'm just going to go to his miscellaneous tab, go to the import settings, and I just have a bunch of code to paste in here. I got this code from the list that I had previously customized, but we will take you through all of the details of what you can do in each of the different components of this tool. There you can see my spinning Rackspace logo. So this just takes a couple of seconds to apply all of that. And there, it's done. So that I have applied this now to the new item form. I'm going to go ahead and save that just so we can quickly see what it looks like, and compared to obviously what the new item form looked like before, and I think you will see a significant change. So you can see immediately.
Ooh, that's nice. The tabs, that's very cool.
Yeah. And some of these tabs are dynamic, so they will change depending on what you select. So if I change this to an item here, notice that changes to Customer Data Center. If I change it to something else, it'll change to Rackspace Data Center. And it's collecting different data in each of those tabs. So we'll take you through all of that now. But what I wanted to show you was, if I go back to just the list view, and I have an item in here already called test. If I edit this item, and I'll do it from here, because I haven't customized the edit form, this looks exactly the same as the new item form did before we began. But our good friend clearly uses this tool as well as creates it, because it immediately asked me, do I want to start from an existing version of that customized form when I tried to get into the tool? I said yes. In fact, let me just show that. I kind of skipped through that pretty quickly.
That's really smart of him to make that really user-friendly like that.
Indeed. So this time, if I enter the setup, I'm on the edit item form. I enter the setup, and he asks, there was no configuration found for the edit form. Do you want to start from one of the configurations already created? And I'm just going to say okay. And then he will gives me the list of all the ones that I've already created for this SharePoint list, which is the new form I had already created. So I'll click on that, and that's as long as it takes to clone it. So it's done. My edit form is now the same as my new item form. And obviously I can do the same thing for the display form, which I'll do in a sec. I want to show you the difference between the display form by default. So as soon as this loads up and I can save it. So now it'll take me back to the edit item form, and you can see it is now in exactly the same configuration as my new item form, and I have all of those options. So let me go back again. Let's look at the last one, is the display item form. I click on the item to display it, and you can see it's right back to the original. So again, I'll enter the dynamic form setup, and again I'm prompted that I don't have this configured. Would I like to copy an existing one? I'll repeat the process. It doesn't really matter which one of these, they're both the same. And again, just a few seconds later, I have now effectively applied that same look and feel or layout of tabs and rules and all those things that we've done to each of the 3 forms for that list. So now I'll go back to the view form, or the display form rather, and the key difference, as you should have noticed immediately, is that this is all read-only. And I didn't have to do anything to make that read-only because it's the display form. It's set everything to read-only, and it works as a display form should. So I didn't have to make any change to my customization to make it a display form versus a new or an edit form. And I think I'm going to hand over to Kelly now, and Kelly will actually take us through some of the features of the tool itself, including tabs and rules and custom JavaScript and so on. So
I'm going to try to. All right, you guys should be seeing that screen now.
Yes, we can.
How's it rendering? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. You have it zoomed to like 125?
Roughly.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so yeah, as Russell pointed out, it's pretty simple to install. But there's a lot of things that we wanted to do that weren't necessarily right out of the box features for SharePoint, like hiding specific fields based on other field selections, tabs as well, stuff like that that isn't really readily out of the box available with SharePoint. So in order to do some of this stuff, if you go into the go back into the backend tool, you'll see all these different tabs at the top. There's tabs, rules, accordion, field tip, all that stuff. So when it first comes open, you'll see none of this is configured, and you hit configure, and then it creates a new tab. If we just look at any one of these, this is the customer details tab. So on this one, we want to show specific fields. So you create the tab, and then you can select which fields you want to be visible on this tab. So for this one, we chose customer name, account number, Salesforce number, build nickname. Then we can add HTML sections or headings, stuff like that, if we want to just design the layout a little better than just having input forms on the screen, so on the tab. Let me give you an instance where we create a rule to show a specific tab. So if you look down here under configuration details, we ask the customer what data center they want to deploy their RPC environment in. So we created a rule called CDC data center. So this rule is simply looking for the value of the data center field, and if it's equal to CDC, which stands for customer data center, then we wanted to show the customer data center tab and hide the Rackspace data center tab. So it's just a simple rule that just basically takes the value and changes it takes the value of the data center and changes the tab arrangement based on that selection. Really simple, straightforward. You don't have to know any JavaScript to be able to do it. All you have to do is create this rule that says, if it looks like this, then show me this field and hide this field. So let me show you.
Is there a concept of rule types, like an info path? You have like a validation rule and a formatting rule, an action rule, that kind of thing? Like, what can you do with rules just in general?
Well, you can create there's different triggers for the rule. So you can set it based on the change of one of these fields or all this other stuff. So you can trigger on load. If you wanted to compare it to a people picker field, all that sort of stuff you can do strictly out of the box with this tool.
That's nice. Okay, yeah, that answers my question. That's awesome.
And then you can also, there's other things that we haven't really dove into, but any of these help. All these question marks, if you hover over them, they give you more details about what that specific function is capable of. So, one thing we were looking at was it didn't necessarily say you couldn't really do if this or if else statements in here, but if you look a little closer, you can compare multiple rules. So if we wanted to have rule 1 and 2, basically if you wanted to have a rule implement based on multiple rules, you can do that with this and these rules function equal true or false. And by hovering over these question marks, you can see that rule will be here. So example is if rule 1 and rule 2 are true, and rule 3 or rule 4 are true, then implement that rule.
All right. Kevin in the chat window has a question. Can rules be applied based on a user's permissions, like group membership?
Absolutely, I believe they can. We haven't actually run this, but I know there is a section in here.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. You can continue what you were showing us, and then we can maybe look for that towards the end.
I know with the tabs, you can definitely make specific tabs appear based on users.
That's better than InfoPath. InfoPath can't really do that. It's very complicated and stupid to be able to do that in InfoPath.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of InfoPath. So let's show you that rule. I think Russell already demoed it a minute earlier, but here's that configurations detail, and notice this Rackspace Data Center tab over here. That's the default value. So if we switch this to CDC, it changes that Customer Data Center tab. So now we have the Customer Data Center tab. Now, if we switch that to DFW, then we have a different set of input fields. And the other thing that's cool, we create another rule where we don't want to just hide the field. We want to hide the field and delete the values so that we don't have things stored in the fields that shouldn't be stored. So what we did is create another rule, so where if we then go back and we switch this back to CDC, you'll see obviously the tab changed. But when you go back into a Rackspace Data Center, all that information has disappeared because we deleted it based on that selection. So that's another type of rule that we can show you how we implemented. But all this stuff is. Go ahead, Russell.
I was going to say, Kelly, you're also working on a notification for that condition. So what we wanted to do is actually let our user know that if they proceed, they're going to lose data that they filled in. So we are busy working on, Kelly's working on writing a condition that will notify the user and say, are you sure you want to proceed? Because you're going to lose all of this information if you continue.
Oh, is it like a little pop-up?
Exactly. And you can do... there's custom JS, so you can do whatever custom jQuery you want in here, and it'll apply. So with this one's actually not working, but what it's looking for is the customer name field, and then if the customer name field is changed, then set tenant 1 equal to customer name. So actually, I think I just fixed it, so it should be working now. But really simple and straightforward to be able to add SharePoint jQuery functions into the ability of the DFS forms. So let's see if that works now. No. So I have it working on our other form, but not here. But you can do whatever JS you want. Another thing that's pretty cool is switching the way these fields look. You can do specific field JavaScript. Russell, do you have that example of what you plugged in earlier? I think we can change, you can do specific CSS within a specific field name. Like if we wanted to reduce the size of the input field, we could easily do that with JavaScript. I think this is it.
So is this sort of like conditional formatting, or is this just always show this field a certain way?
Yeah, this will be always show this field a specific way. Now, there's actually there's at least three different ways to do CSS. here. There's the field. You can do it specifically on a given field. You can do custom CSS, which will apply across the entire this entire form, or you can actually change the front end values within all the files that we uploaded earlier. You can actually switch the CSS there. So if you want to make it universal throughout your entire site collection, it can pull the front end. Like we added these different header types. If you'll notice, these are basically on the tabs. We have these different values here. So we declare that H22 value, which is basically the blue header value, which is displayed on the form here.
Okay, so kind of one of the general ideas it looks like behind this is that you don't have like a user interface where you're visually working with the fields or dragging them or clicking on them to do things with them. It's all sort of done more behind the scenes with just an overall list of rules, an overall list of fields. So, I mean, it's a very practically free product, but that just seems like, you know, kind of one of the major differences between this one and a lot of the higher end form editors, right?
I haven't really used any of the higher end ones, but
well, yeah. You're not visually editing your form. Like you don't see the form on the page, and you're not like dragging boxes around and, you know, editing colors directly on them, that kind of thing.
Like SharePoint Designer used to do.
Yeah, yeah, and InfoPath does, yeah. Those are tools that a lot of people are familiar with. So this is just a little bit something different to get, you know, the feel for. But you can do, it looks like not only all the same things the other ones did, but more stuff, you know.
Right.
More capabilities.
And I guess one of the things we like about it is it's not messing with the list itself. It's applying this as a, you know, scripting after the fact. It's just how it renders the list. So that's quite helpful.
Another cool rule that we put in place is we have a number of different like availability zones that the customer can enter in. Now, what I hate on a form is showing 10 different fields when you only populate 1 or 2 of them, right? So with this, as soon as you populate 1, automatically ends the next one. You don't have to show that entire list of 20 different fields just to get, you know, 2 answers from the customer. So, and then when you delete these, it automatically deletes the ones below. So.
Okay, so that's sort of like almost like the concept of repeating tables, maybe, like it's sort of a table inside your list, but you actually had to create separate fields for every single like possible iteration of those. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
There's hundreds of fields in this list.
Yeah, that particular item has got 5 possible input fields, but we only show 1 by default, and as they fill in that first one, the second one pops up, in case they want to fill in a second. But that's it.
What's your Documents tab? Is that where people are attaching things, or?
Yeah, that's basically the attachment column. So it allows you to go in and attach specific documents to this form as attachments.
Awesome. I could just keep asking you questions, but I don't want to interrupt your
No, go ahead. I want to ask questions.
So let's see. Let's go back to, I guess, the interface where you were doing all the. How do you get back to the admin sort of part of this?
Okay, so
Did you get there?
At the very bottom, once the column's installed on the list, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see this enhance with DFFS, and it's just a link that takes you right to the interface.
Oh, okay.
And you can control who can see that. So that is controllable under the miscellaneous tab. You can set the group of people that are able to enter setup.
Okay.
There. Yeah. And here you can actually add new fields to the list as well.
Oh, wow, nice.
Another thing, this defer loading of DFFS. So you may run into an issue where you have so many people pickers on a form that it takes too long to load, and DFFS tries to load before those people pickers are completely populated. So you can actually set a delay to allow the form to load before the DFFS overlay actually turns on.
Cool. So I guess let's methodically go through each of the buttons at the top just to kind of get an overview of what you can do on there. Then I know we went to a couple of them, but I'm just kind of curious. So tabs.
Yeah, so tabs is just
tabs
equates to how many tabs you want at the top on the form itself, and you can actually adjust. So if you notice here, there's so many tabs that it goes on to the next row. So you can set that actually in miscellaneous too. If you want, you can split the tabs into multiple rows. So if we wanted 3 tabs in each row, then when we save it, you'll notice that all the it'll only have 3 rows of tab, or it'll only have 3 columns of tabs. So,
oh yeah.
Did you see that? So just real simple to change the look and feel of your form. Very straightforward.
Can you make a field not necessarily hidden according to a condition, but just make things read-only according to a condition, or even according to who's looking at it?
I think I know you can with the. So if you look here, you have the optional fields, you have visible fields, required fields, and hidden fields, read-only fields, and editable fields. So you can do all that stuff.
Cool.
Now, I know I've seen it.
Oh, I see it on the right, read-only fields.
Yeah, read-only fields is here, so if we wanted to make one of these specific fields read-only, we could, let's see. Yeah, we can add whatever field we want, and it just pulls from the list of fields. So
is that per tab, or is that just the field overall?
This is, it depends on, it's only when the rule is implemented, right? So this is the rule. So if glance in back in storage is equal to NetApp, then we want these visible fields, these required fields, and we could set read-only fields and stuff like that.
Very cool.
So it's based on the rule being triggered as to when. And one thing that's kind of cool is, like when you create a tab, you don't really have to, you say what fields you want visible, but you don't have to say which ones you don't want. It'll automatically assume that if you want these fields visible, you don't want these other fields to be hidden. Right? And if you wanted to, say you wanted to have like a review tab where you have all your fields, all you have to do is create a new field and don't put anything in it. Just give it a name, and when you hit save, you'll have a tab that shows every single field on your form.
Cool.
So here's the tab I just created called 1, and it shows every single field. Well, every single field minus the rules that are in place. So these rules would still apply.
Let's see. I guess so. What were some of those other buttons besides rules? So we went tabs, rules. What is Accordion, and are you guys using that?
We're not using it, but I think I set up an example of how it's being used. We're not using it on our other form, but for this, let me see if it's actually set up. It might not be because.
It's okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. It's really simple to actually implement. So we can show you. So if we, for instance, what it would do is if we wanted standard, it basically Accordion allows you to expand or contract the number of list items. So if we wanted to just click standard VLANs and then show the fields that are in standard VLANs, it would expand those fields and hide the ones that we want to be hidden.
Nice.
Right. So anything. So basically, think of it like like an expanding tree, right, for files. Russell, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, hop back into the tabs. Let's show on a couple of other things here. So I think what might be good is just to show, with a couple of clicks, if you take a look at, if you go right to the bottom there, then where you've got tab 1, let's just delete that tab and just point out the action section.
Do what?
So point out where you add, remove, and move tabs.
Okay, so down here at the bottom of each tab, you have the clone, new, delete. You can move it up and down, so that'll position it on your form if you want it left or right, or move it to an index. So, like if we wanted tab 1 to be the first tab, we would set it to index 0, which moved it all the way up to the top. So now instead of being on the right side of the form, it'll be on the left side of the form.
Cool.
Here.
It looked like that there was another tab in there called Field Table. I guess that would be like a repeating table kind of thing. Up at the top next to Custom CSS Field Table.
Oh, this is just your list of your forms
okay.
with your display name and the internal name and the type of field that it is.
Yeah, that's quite a handy reference page, actually, if you're trying to remember what the internal name is for veteran users of Rackspace, of SharePoint. You'll know that when you first create a list item or a column, whatever name you get it is the name it has forever, even if you change that name.
Yep, that system name or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so this list shows you the field internal name if you ever need to recall what it was.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Cascading dropdowns. People love cascading dropdowns. Are y'all using any of those?
We're not. We don't actually even have it configured. But when you click on any of these tabs, it gives you a link to find out more information about that tab. So, and actually, during the process of installation, you actually have the ability to select which ones you want of these plugins to be installed. Russell just did the default of just the DFFS, but you can install these as well when you go through that setup process. There's actually checkboxes. I don't know if you guys noticed them, but there's checkboxes of additional plugins you can plug in.
And in fact, you can modify that setup at any time. So if you go back to that web part page where I initially did the kind of setup from, if you just follow the same steps as I did the very first time, you can add the options at that point.
Nice.
So one of the other things that we can show here is the side-by-side. So from a tab, you can select columns to, input columns to show up next to each other instead of.
Yeah. So if you remember, we had customer name, account number, Salesforce number, and build nickname. They were all stacked on top of each other, right? So if we wanted to put customer name next to account number, and then underneath that have Salesforce number next to build nickname, we could just create apply to the side-by-side column by putting in the index. And if I think the easiest way to think about index is just row, what row you want it on. So now we would have customer name and account number in row 1, and sales number and Salesforce number and build nickname in row 2. And then we can change the position of where we want the label. So let's put the label on the left instead of hiding it. So then when we save that, you should see customer name side-by-side account number. So it applies that across horizontally as opposed to vertically.
And in this case, if you did this, you'd probably also want to apply the custom style sheet against those fields to shorten the width of that input box, which was the one we showed earlier.
Yeah, so that's the field CSS where you can change the size of those input fields. There's some other side-by-side settings you can do. We haven't played with these too much. But
yeah, the one thing that we did do was replace the labels. So instead of having the labels that come from the SharePoint list or the SharePoint column, you can replace the labels and give it a completely different heading.
Actually,
Or
let
in
me
this
go ahead and
case, you add in. I think leave it like that because then you're just going to add a description for that row as well. Leave it show the titles, all the existing ones.
leave this shown. Okay.
Yeah. If not, it'll show both, right?
See, now it added these. So
Yeah.
we can actually, if we didn't want to have this customer name, if we don't have the description of that field, you can simply go back to the tab. Whoops. You can simply go back into the tab. And
Yeah,
I didn't save that.
No, you did. You're in the display form. This is one thing you have to keep an eye on, is which form you're editing. So this is the display form. If you click on the link at the bottom of the display form, then it's the display form layout that you're modifying.
What was
So
I on?
if you
Edit?
just one of the forms, and you have to remember to go like copy your settings to all if you want them all to be the same.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do.
Yeah,
so
I can.
What you do is you just delete the existing form on the other tab, and then when you go to edit again, it'll say, hey, you don't have a form here. Do you want to copy one that you already do have? And then you pick the one that you've done all the work on.
Nice. What was that VLOOKUP thing that I saw?
We haven't installed that.
So
But that allows you to do a lookup to another list.
Nice.
And you can
Is it already a lookup field in SharePoint, or is that like separate from that?
We haven't played with it yet, but
Oh, okay. Cool.
I think it's separate.
I think it's separate, but it allows you to look up a list item in another field based off of a column that you obviously have in common between them. And you can start showing the contents from another list in this form.
Very cool. And then what was the? I'm sorry.
So now these are hidden. Now the columns are hidden. So if we
okay.
wanted to take what we've done with the edit form and put it on the new form, all we'd have to do is simply go into the new form, the backend for the new form. Obviously, you can see here this stuff is still as it was when we first implemented it. And we'll just go up here and hit delete. And that deletes the current config for new form.aspx. So now it opens up the form again. It's back to how it was. Now we want to apply the changes that we made on the edit form. It clones it. We save it. And now the new form looks just like the edit form.
Nice. In my experience, I usually do have a completely different new form than the edit form, because when somebody's first filling out whatever this type of request is, usually there's a ton of stuff they don't need to see.
That's exactly how we use it too. So we have the new form is normally initiated by someone who just kicks off the process, and so there's only a very small number of things that we need to start the process. So that's all we show them on the new form, whereas the edit form is for the guys that are actually managing the process, and so they need to see a whole lot more stuff.
Right. But with this tool, it's so easy that if you have the edit form completed how you want it, you can clone the edit form to the new form and then just delete the stuff that you don't need. So the configuration will look exactly the same. It's just you don't need all those specific fields. You only want to ask these 10 fields instead of these 100 fields.
Yeah. You can just go and delete the tabs, even.
Right.
It's that simple.
Nice. I have several more questions, but I wanted to see like the rest of the team here if y'all have anything any questions in mind. You guys, we have 34 live viewers, by the way. That's a lot.
Cool. I guess just a couple of things that you can do. You can, in terms of a list of features that we make use of. So one is hide tabs, show tabs. depending on rules. The HTML section, which we looked at, where we're adding the sections and titles for those sections. So what the page that you're looking at right now, where the customer details, we used, that's an HTML section on the tab. In terms of the rules that you're capable of, let's go back to that rules link, Kelly, because I think there's an awful lot built in that very easy to use. So if you just scroll down and kind of hang around there. So with any rule, deciding what's going to be an optional field, a visible field, an editable field, required fields, hidden fields, and read-only fields is super straightforward. I mean, you just literally click Add Field on any one of those, and when that rule triggers, it will apply to, according to which fields you've actually selected under those conditions. So it's really easy to use.
It just requires the understanding of logic, a logical brain to be able to think through some of this stuff, right?
It does, and
not necessarily end user Betty in accounting could do this, but a lot of our typical audience could.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is a power user tool as opposed to an end user tool. And typically, what we've found is that our end users anyway is the target for the output, not necessarily for this. So, like the team that I have that is managing our customer deployments, they don't want to know anything about SharePoint. They don't want to do. For them, SharePoint is just a tool. It's not, it's how they track their work. They don't want to be getting into this stuff anyway. Whereas for us, I'm trying to make that tool, and so this is pretty neat for us.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of balance I'm seeing with all these form editing tools, as far as whether they're more user-friendly, like a wider audience of people could do it, versus it's got a lot more functionality and a lot more freeform, but it's a little more complicated to understand logic and things like that. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, team, did y'all have questions? No? Shake your heads? I've got a couple more.
No real questions, but I mean, I'd say, one, that this is something that maybe the end user who has a talent for this kind of thing could figure out a lot more easily than they could info path. And pretty cool product.
Jeremy asked about the resource management functionality. We haven't really dove into that yet, so not sure there. But again, it's a 14-day free trial, and really for just one site, it's $50. The license is only $50, so it's very reasonable.
That's nice.
That's for a whole site collection, actually. So it's $50.
Oh, okay.
And I think that we have a couple of questions in the QA area about large companies using it, or can you use it or can you display the resource management functionality? Given the 14-day trial and the cost of it per site collection, this would be something that even though we haven't seen it in widespread usage, I think a lot of companies could take a flyer on the $50 to see how well it worked for them.
Yeah, which is exactly what we did. We just said it's $50. We're going to spend the money and use it.
I didn't see questions in the Q&A, Stephen, asking that. Maybe you see things that I don't see. That's weird.
Yes, I see one from Jeremy Lohman and one from Josh Swearingen. So it just says, do you know of any large companies? We have about 5,000 users, and our company is concerned about utilizing solutions such as this, but they aren't ready to buy K2 or Nintex either.
So if we take a look, he's got a pretty good explanation about his licensing on his website. The corporate user site collection license is probably the exact one that person is looking for. That's $50 for a single site collection designed for a large corporate. And actually, as a large company, you are able to buy more than one of those licenses from him. So if you had 3 site collections you wanted to apply this on, you could buy 3 of those. You don't have to go. He's designed it like that so that you don't actually have to go through your big procurement process in order to get hold of this licensing. I mean, he's obviously works with a lot of enterprises and has experienced that. But it's all explained on the license section on his website. So by all means, take a look at that.
We shared that in the little showcase app for you guys to get the link to that. It's called DFFS, Dynamic Forms for SharePoint. And then Jeremy says, are you able to display the resource management functionality? What? I'm not sure what that is.
So we haven't used that part of the tool yet. That is designed for things like room reservations, so like booking conference rooms or things like that. He has that all documented on his website. Again, I think it's fairly straightforward to get set up, but we just haven't explored that particular section yet ourselves.
Nice. Well, I had some. This is really cool. I had some other questions about just some of the other little buttons I saw in there, but we're done. We're over our hour, but I feel like I'm gonna go play around with this and try it out, and it seems like a lot of fun. Let's see. Let me flip that back over to me. Thanks, guys, for visiting our Power Hour this week, and it was fun having you as guests. We appreciate you guys doing the demo, and I'm not sure what we're doing next week for Power Hour, but thanks everybody for coming, and we had something like 35 live viewers. Awesome. So everybody have a good week.